Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the franchise is actually quite expansive, given that we have Tony Gilroy, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni working on various projects, be it, of course, Star Wars TV shows or movies, whatever have you, of course. Everything related to expanding the franchise is being handled very carefully right now, given that Kathleen Kennedy has little to no creative input into these projects, except for Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support, and let's get right to the chase without wasting any time here. So, we know that there's been a lot of struggles happening between the Disney executives and Bob Iger, and as well as what's going on with the current state of Star Wars. Basically, what Bob Iger wants to do is that he himself wants to leave behind a legacy that he was the guy to turn Star Wars around, to really make it better than ever before, and to kind of make him really gain that legacy is a real challenge to him right now. That's why he wants to focus on movies again, because then you can rely on ticket sales and repeat ticket sales to make those very and wildly successful. But that brings us to the main subject, alright, and how it does involve George Lucas, and expands on what we recently talked about a couple of days ago. Now, with George Lucas working very close with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni on various Star Wars projects, recently Disney CEO Bob Iger and the executives finalized and added on to a very important plan for Lucas to have more privileges over at Lucasfilm that will transform the company. The plan is for Lucas to take over many departments over at Lucasfilm by the end of 2024, one of which involves the story group. However, there is more to the story that makes this even more exciting, of course, for the community. Now, Iger's plan is going through with the executives to have Lucas gain control over the budgeting over certain Star Wars shows and films, as well as finalizing casting decisions for many of the roles in these upcoming projects. They are also getting Lucasfilm involved more as executives, producers, and such as a co-writer for many of the upcoming projects to get Lucas involved as co-writing many of those upcoming shows. Now, before I get to the next big segment here real quick, is that this to me I think is a great game plan on their end, the fact that they want Lucas to get more involved as a co-writer for many of the upcoming shows and movies, as well as executive producing projects. Now, what I like about that so much is that not only do they have these concrete plans now to mark him as the head of the story group by the end of next year, but they also want to get him involved in many projects co-writing. One of which, by the way, is going to be Star Wars Underworld, which was going to be the original first live-action Star Wars TV show that got cancelled early on, unfortunately, back in 2007. There's even leaked test footage on the internet. Go ahead and look it up. It's basically a mixture of Blade Runner and Star Wars in the depths of Coruscant, and we'll talk about that in just a second. What I like so much about this is that Bob Iger is going out of his way to really make George Lucas a very prominent figure at the company, at Lucasfilm. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that they're really looking at this in a realistic sense. They know that Lucas doesn't really want the overall responsibility of handling a company widely, as big as, Lucasfilm. So I don't think it's, realistic to say that he'll take the role of becoming a president or anything like that, right away like that. But they do have Dana Brunetti, a big Hollywood producer, as well as, others on the list and the roster to become the replacement for Kathleen Kennedy once they meet that actual moment. But moving on to the next thing here that's even all the more, I believe, important is that on top of this, alright, Lucas has already held discussions with the executives about his Underworld show, and that his vision of his Star Wars show is being made into a reality that will feature new characters and familiar faces alike, such as Darth Maul and Kira from Solo: A Star Wars Story. Specifically, Disney's plan is for Lucas to become the head of the Lucasfilm Story Group by the end of 2024 to lead things creatively, all things Star Wars, ranging from the books, comics, movies, and television. Lucas also is said to have no interest on adapting High Republic content and wants to focus on Old Republic content strictly and TV shows and movies that are already being worked on in the early development phase. Lucas is also planning to also take the lead in finalizing the storyboards of all projects created by John and Dave and giving them the okay on specific illustrations for many of the upcoming shows, movies, and etc. to ensure quality content is being put out there to the community. Now again, the thing that I find about this to be so, reassuring is the fact that it's Bob Iger who is allowing this to all really happen. Now we know that everything related to George Lucas's Star Wars, it just feels more magical. It has that great feeling to it all, and that's what Dave Filoni wants to recapture in Star Wars Ahsoka. It's what he wants to recapture in Mando Season 4. Even Dave Filoni admitted that Mando 4 is basically going to be a reset for the Mandalorian franchise, or the series, I should say. That's why it kind of ended more on a new note, where Din Djarin says he wants to hunt down Imperial remnants and how he's just hanging home with Grogu. It's a new beginning. They're focusing away from saving Mandalore, and they just want to focus on a new tale now. So there's a lot of things going on between Lucas and taking over all these different departments of Lucasfilm, such as the story group and all these different areas of the company, to really just provide fans quality-driven content. I think the thing that I find so impressive about this is the fact that Lucas will eventually be the one finalizing storyboards, and he's already doing that partially as we speak, but eventually fully finalizing storyboards about what's to be put into these scripts of the upcoming movies and shows. And that is a very big deal. Alright, because that's kind of like telling the writers, what to do and what not to do before you begin writing dialogue and, scene descriptions and stuff like that. So, obviously Bob Iger realizes that Lucas is much needed as a prominent figure over at Lucasfilm to really kind of course correct things. And I think it's really becoming more apparent to Bob Iger now that, without Lucas, you really can't course correct right from the get-go. You have to have him to kickstart that and to kind of just give it a little bit of an oomph, right? To really bring it on the right path. And that's basically their strategy right now. How long are they going to keep George Lucas around is a bigger question for another time, right? We really don't know how long he's going to stay there. We all know that George, he's not crazy old or anything like that, but he's up there in age, if you think about it. He is 78 years old, and by the time this gets fully established, he's going to be around 79, 80 years old. But that's enough time for him to kind of work things out and push Star Wars in the right path, and that's something that I think would really mark his legacy even more so. So overall, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again, no hiding on one. From night to moon, we hear them moans again.